How many condo towers do you think are under construction in downtown right now?
3 or 4?
1.
Yours.
That's correct.
Welcome to the Elite 25 podcast, where we sit down with the verified top 1% of Austin real estate agents to hear about the housing market, how they became the best agents in Austin, their challenges, and their success stories. If you're interested in luxury real estate and insights from the hottest market in America, this is the show for you. Hi, Kevin. Thanks for joining us today at the Elite 25 podcast.
Tony, glad to be here.
Tell us a little bit about this house. What is this beautiful structure we're sitting in today?
So, Tony, we're in 800 Rock Creek. It is a home that I developed. Urbanspace Interiors, which is my interior design firm, did all the interior design. We did all the furniture through our Urbanspace Interiors furniture store. It's a 6-bedroom, 6.5 bath, multiple living areas. Architectural design by Jay Quarter. It has a pool. It has basically all the bells and whistles in a location that is 10 minutes to downtown and 5 minutes to the heart of Westlake.
Well, it's absolutely stunning. You did a fantastic job.
Really appreciate
that actually brings me to my next question for you. You're such a unique member of Elite 25. We want to learn more about you and the companies that you run and what drives you. And frankly, how do you do it?
Well, thanks, Tony. I got into the real estate business almost 30 years ago in 1997 while still at UT. I worked for a developer for my first 3 years. I was bit by the bug of both commercial and residential real estate. I'd always had a passion for architecture, for design, and for creating great spaces. So in 2000, I founded Urbanspace based upon that passion for urban living and mixing both residential and commercial real estate together. In 2004, I started marketing condo towers. Sold out my first condo tower in 2006. It was a huge success. It landed me number 1 in Austin, Texas for largest amount of real estate sales, residential real estate sales ever in a year in Austin.
What was that called?
That was Malago was the name of the condo project. And from there, I leveraged that into the sales and marketing of countless other condo projects while still building my traditional residential brokerage business. Right after I sold out Malago, I actually bought a tract of land on Rainey Street, which was an area of downtown Austin that had historically been zoned single family. And it just recently been rezoned Central Business District, which allowed for high-rise development. So I bought that site back in 2006 and sat on it for a while, put a couple bars on the site. And fast forward, over time, I loved collecting ground floor retail spaces of towers that I had a part of. And as I collected those spaces, I usually added businesses to my organization. So in 2008, I started a furniture store called Urbanspace Interiors. In 2010, I added an interior design firm to that. And then over time, I added a moving and logistics business called Urbanspace Logistics. I opened a bar called The Codependent. It's also a coffee shop, great spot downtown. It's a place where a lot of people gather to exchange ideas. And I see a lot of first dates. I see a lot of business meetings. And as the night digresses, a lot of good times. You know, I've had a hand in the restaurant business. Sometimes things go well and sometimes they don't. You know, I'd like to talk about wins and lessons versus wins and losses. And then most recently, that site that I mentioned that I bought right after closing out Malago, I actually built a 56-story, 512,000 square foot condo tower on it. I'm just delivering it. It's called The Modern. We'll be moving residents in the course of the next few weeks. And we still have available inventory there from 1-bedroom residences all the way to penthouses from $600 and some odd thousand to over $18 million.
Wow. That's just a really unbelievable story. Not just the depth and the scope of all that you've done, but I think everybody's wondering, how do you actually transition from selling real estate to owning 4 or 5 different companies, but also to designing, building, and becoming basically a real estate developer?
I'm a realist. I would be considered at this point in time one of Austin's largest downtown. I am Austin's largest downtown real estate developer.
Wow.
For high-rise condominiums. It's all about empowering great people. And then people talk about work-life balance. I don't have a work-life balance. I'm just me. I love what I do. I love building community. I love creating amazing spaces. I love design. I love architecture. I love working with great people. On the residential side of things, back to the simple transactions, I love helping people find a home, right? And then I love finding, when I sell somebody's home, I like figuring out what differentiates that home from the rest and really accentuating that home in the marketplace.
That's really an incredible story. I've known you personally, have known you now, I think 25 years or so. And I remember the early days when Will Stakely and a lot of these other guys who have gone on to do other firms and other things started in your office. And I'm curious a little bit about Urbanspace, the real estate arm and its growth, and where are you headed in the future, and what's your plans with that?
Certainly. So, I've had a great honor and privilege to have quite a few of what I would call the champions in real estate work at Urbanspace in the past, and gave them a foundation. And it's now so much fun getting to have friendly competition with truly my friends that have worked with me at Urbanspace. Austin's I think one of the things that's so unique about our town is people that are experts in their field work with each other, even if they would technically be considered competitors. It allows us to be the best at what we are. We share notes, we exchange ideas. But as far as kind of where Urbanspace is going, we're going to continue to develop, right? That's kind of the pinnacle. That's what I've worked for my whole life, was to be able to develop. I'll continue to invest. And, we're going to continue to help out buyers and sellers that have a passion for the urban environment. That's the differentiator at Urbanspace is, we're not all things to all people. If you came to me and you said, hey, Kev, I want to buy a house in Pflugerville, I'm going to gracefully decline. I will help you find the right agent for that acquisition in Pflugerville. Or if you came to me and you said, hey, I got a great house on Lake Travis I want you to sell for me. It might be a $10 million house. I'm still going to turn the transaction down because it's not the best fit for myself. And therefore I won't be able to properly represent the seller in that transaction.
Understood.
Yeah.
Understood.
So it's all about continuing to hone in and master our expertise of urban real estate. And the fun thing about urban real estate in Austin is when I first started the company in 2000, people considered urban real estate maybe a 2-mile radius of the capital. Right. Well, now urban real estate is more like a 10-mile radius of the capital. Anything inside of 360, in my opinion, is urban real estate.
Sure.
Right. And then you go north to the Domain, that's becoming another urban center as well.
What are your thoughts along the lines of urban real estate? And there's a lot of talk about, is Austin a bubble? Is it not a bubble? Where do you think Austin is in the luxury market in general?
That's a great question, Tony. If you look at the pricing of our luxury real estate pound for pound compared to competitive market sets, right? Which I look at Miami, New York, Boston, San Francisco, parts of Los Angeles or the Los Angeles area. We're very competitively priced, right? If you look at buying a luxury home in Miami, if this home was in Miami with this kind of location in Miami, this would be, as opposed to $6.5 million, it would be $13 million. It might be $20 million, right? The condos that we have in downtown Austin, if you look at the caliber of location, call it adjacent to a Whole Foods, on the park, in the center of all the action, in a luxury building with a great view, you might be looking at $4,000 to $8,000 a square foot. While in Austin, that same property is $1,000 to $1,800 a square foot, right? So we're still a fraction of the cost compared to the competitive set, quality of life, innovative cities. I also look at the fact that we have a lot of restrictions in development in Austin, Texas. So that equates to restrictions and future inventory, right? So, at the moment, I'll be the first to say, we've had close to a 2-year trough in our marketplace. Means for a buyer, it's a great time to buy, courtesy of the higher interest rates that we've seen in the marketplace. But the buyers have still moved to Austin. They've just been leasing. So, to go try and find a lease right now for our luxury homes, near to impossible. But I just really think what we're doing is we're like pulling back the rubber band. We're pulling back we're creating tension in the market. And eventually, when interest rates change, when I think we have a little bit more stability in our financial markets and in our government, I feel like that slingshot's going to release, and we're going to go directly from a buyer's market to a serious seller's market.
With all the growth that we've seen in Austin over the last few years, do you believe that the Austin condo growth, we see a lot of cranes downtown? Do you think that's going to continue? Do you think it's going to stop? Or how do you see the next couple of years going with growth of specifically residentials downtown?
Yeah. So, that's a great question, Tony. When people see all these cranes downtown, they just go to the assumption that they're condo towers,
Sure.
right? How many condo towers do you think are under construction in downtown right now?
I have no idea. 3 or 4?
One.
Oh, wow.
You know which one that is?
Yours.
That's correct.
The modern.
Right.
Excellent.
You
When
know-
will that finish?
So in the next couple of weeks,
Oh, wow.
right? So it takes approximately from the time you put a shovel in the ground, it takes greater than 3 years to deliver a condo tower. There aren't any other condo towers under construction right now in
Wow.
downtown Austin. Not one. That means that the inventory that I have in my tower right now, it's available for purchase right now that you can move into in the next month, is your only opportunity to buy
New.
into a new luxury building in downtown in the course of the next 3 years.
Wow.
And that's if a tower starts construction immediately. But there's nothing. We have a tower that we're going to be launching, but not until next year, which means that that's not going to deliver until 2029. So that's 4 years from now. And that's called the Luminary. It's going to be a great project at the corner of 14th and Guadalupe. But that's pretty much it, right?
Wow.
There's some existing inventory from previous projects that are available. There's a project called the Linden that Will Stakely's marketing. It's a great project at 17th and Lavaca. But if you want a larger residence, like we have our penthouses, for example, at the Modern, are half floor residences that have a view all the way up the lake and the skyline. They're completely custom. And, if you're looking for something that's really, really high end, we're the only act in town.
We played this game every week, and we try to get a feel for if you had an extra $10 million here in Austin to spend and you had to spend it on real estate, what would be the major factors that would help you make your decision? And how does that compare to what most luxury buyers want in Austin?
So there's certain markets, in my opinion, that just always perform. Like they're kind of unicorn communities, right? Where there's everything lines up right. And so in good markets, they do well. In bad markets, they do well. They're just special markets. And for me, those markets are Old West Austin. Most people refer to that as Clarksville, but most people that really know that neighborhood know that Clarksville is only about a 4 block by 4 block area surrounded by Old West Austin. So I love Old West Austin. I love downtown. I love Rollingwood and very close in Westlake. I think those are very special markets. I think that the old Infield neighborhood is also very special. So these are areas where you can still ride a bike to work, right? Even close in Westlake or close in Rollingwood, you can still ride a bike to work. They're within a $10 or $12 Uber ride. The Old West Austin Neighborhood Association and Clarksville, Old Infield, you can literally walk into downtown. And so as people come back to work, right, I believe there's something to be said for quality of life where you don't have to be stuck in traffic.
Sure.
Right. And so I live downtown myself. I live at the Independent. I'm going to be moving into the Modern when my penthouse is done. But I walk almost everywhere. Right. I was looking at my odometer on my car. I've owned it for exactly a year now, and I have less than 3,000 miles. And over 1,000 of those miles I put on a road trip in Europe before it got sent to the United States.
Nice.
So I've driven less than 2,000 miles in the course of the past year because I get to walk so frequently. So basically, it's all about the compact and connected community that I would put my money.
If you weren't a luxury realtor or developer or hospitality restaurateur, what other somewhat unique lifestyle or occupation could you see yourself doing?
I always believe in doing things that you love. Right. So I love to ski and I love to sail. I would probably split my time living in Park City. I have a house that I developed there and maybe be a ski bum half the year and then maybe be a crew member on one of my sailboats in the Caribbean.
The sailboats is a funny story. Tell us a little bit about that. And when did you get your first one? I remember hearing about it.
Yeah. So I sold out a condo tower back in 2016 called Seaholm, Seaholm. I learned about a tax opportunity called Section 179, which allows you to accelerate depreciation on assets purchased for business purposes. And so I bought my first 10-passenger, 62-foot catamaran in 2016 and named it Seaholm, Seahome, and then made an active charter business out of it. So I was able to accelerate depreciation and offset a chunk of the income from the closeout of the C home residences.
Tell us a little bit about when you first got in the business. Did you know you were going to be in real estate your whole life? What did you first do? You mentioned that you worked with a developer your first couple of years. Tell us how you got in and tell us a little bit about what your first couple steps were.
That's a great question, Tony. So in high school, I owned a lawn and landscaping business in Houston, Texas. Got into UT. I came here when I was 17. I still actually tried to run my landscaping business in Houston while going to the University of Texas in Austin. And I quickly learned that that wasn't going to work. I asked myself, what am I going to do next? And in the lawn and landscaping business, I had several clients that were real estate brokers where I'd take care of their properties. And I've always had a passion for architecture, design, real estate. And so I'm like, what the heck? I'll get my real estate license. So I got my real estate license at 19 years old. I got it at the same time as a fellow Elite 25 member, Cord Shiflett. Like we were in school together. That's how I actually met him. I went back home to Clear Lake for the summer, and I actually represented an old lawn client of mine in the sale of his home on Clear Lake, and then I helped him buy a 5,000 square foot house in the neighborhood that my family lived in. So those are my first two transactions that I did at 19. And the broker that I worked for was a broker that I used to mow lawns for, and I asked him, I'm like, who should I go work for when I come back to Austin? And he told me about a guy by the name of Barry Gillingwater. And Barry was predominantly a developer, but he held a broker's license. And he was kind of a legend in town. He developed over 20,000 multifamily units, 10 million square feet of office space. I mean, just kind of had his fingers into a lot of different things. I bugged him until he actually said, yes, you can come work for me. He's like, I don't have a brokerage. I know I have a broker's license, but I don't have a brokerage. No, you can't come here. No. Okay. You're not going to accept the no from me. So come on board. So while working with Barry, I did a little bit of everything under the sun. I did downtown commercial leases. I sold a ranch in Blanco County. I sold James Avery Jewelers' fifth ex-wife's ranchette in Kerrville. I did apartment leases for my college buddies. I sold condos all over town. And I realized that every time I did a transaction, I was having to relearn the players in the marketplace. I was having to learn the nomenclature for the type of transaction I was dealing with. And I realized I wasn't acting as an expert. I also realized that if I was going to become great at what I do, I needed to focus on what I love and concentrate. And even though I do both commercial and residential real estate, I focused on a geographical area, right? That way I could learn everything about that area and become an expert. Right?
And that's the urban core, basically.
That's the urban core. And so after working for Barry for 3 years, I just graduated college. I got my broker's license at 21. And then at 22, I went ahead and took a leap of faith and founded Urbanspace because I really wanted to focus on that core expertise of the urban environment.
And there weren't, if I remember correctly, there weren't a whole lot of downtown urban only or urban focused real estate firms at that time, were there?
There weren't. I think my only real competitor was Van Heuven Properties. And Kamara Wilcoxon, a fellow Elite 25 member, she was with Van Heuven. And so it was kind of the two of us. And then Will Stakely came on board at Urbanspace, and Brian Cady and a handful of other illustrious characters. And we just had a good old time making a mark in the urban environment.
So I'll ask you to shift gears a little bit here and maybe focus on real estate is a tough game in any market, but being in the Austin market, why don't you tell us a little bit about a situation where you came up against it and you thought, man, this thing may not work out. And what did you do to save the deal? And how would you say it worked out?
That's a great question. I've been blessed in the fact that almost every transaction that I've put under contract has gotten across the finish line. There have only been a few that have made. But I remember one where it was on Stratford Drive, right around the corner from where we're sitting right now. My client I was representing the buyer, and I had negotiated a hell of a deal on this house on Stratford Drive. We had a long closing, and we were like 45 days in the contract. And my client comes to me and he's like, I can't close. I know I said I could close. I can't close. And he had about $60,000 of earnest money at risk. But the seller's ex-husband was one of the largest litigators in the United States of America. He was in the tobacco litigation business. And we got a nice friendly little letter that my client was either going to close or he was going to feel a lot of pain.
Mm-hmm.
So I scratched my head and I asked myself, like, how do I get my client out of a pickle? I didn't put him into this predicament. Sure. I negotiated a hell of a deal for him, right? I'm looking at this deal. I'm like, this is a great house. It's a great price on a great house. My client's like, yeah, they can have the earnest money. I just want to be released from the deal. And the seller didn't want to release him from the deal. They wanted specific performance. I actually went to my dad. I'm like, Dad, you need a house in Austin, don't you? They lived in Houston at the time. And I went to him. I'm like, look, I got a hell of a deal on a house. You can keep the $60,000 of earnest money applied towards the purchase price. That reduces it another 60. And I'll throw in all of my commission just because I want to get this guy out of the deal. I'm not going to get a commission if my client gets sued.
Sure.
Right. And so he ended up buying it and got a hell of a deal and owned it for a couple of years. My sister actually lived there for a number of years. It was the Stratford Drive sorority house. And, my dad made like $400,000 on a $550,000 investment in the course of a couple of years. So it all worked out.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I bet you see a lot of different types of people. And one of the things that everybody likes to hear is, what's the craziest situation or request that you got from one of your buyers or sellers?
I haven't actually had anything too terribly crazy. I will say, though, that, my clients are my friends and my friends are my clients. And I deal with a lot of very, very powerful individuals. And they don't really recognize that there is a on or off switch when it comes to calling me about a real estate transaction or real estate advice. Right.
It's on all the time.
All the time. I've literally gotten calls at midnight. I've gotten calls at 6 o'clock in the morning. I've gotten calls, Sunday AM and AM at 8 o'clock. I mean, it doesn't matter. And I really feel like that's one of my key differentiators is I answer my phone. So when I got into the business back in the 90s and I was a college kid and I wasn't from Austin, Texas, and my dad wasn't in the real estate business and all these other things, or an architect or whatever. Mm-hmm. I'm like, how am I going to differentiate myself? And I just had to work harder. I had to work smarter. I had to be the one that picked up my phone on a holiday and say, of course, I'll show you the house in 15 minutes. It doesn't matter that I'm busy doing something else.
Sure.
Right. And Absolutely. So that hustle and that ability to have a little grit, I think got me pretty far.
Yeah. I think you figured it out. As far as Austin and falling in love with this town, I'm sure you have a lot of out of town buyers who come to town and say, I have 24 hours to see the city. Where's your go-to spot? What are you going to do? How are you going to show them to give them the best taste of Austin in such a short window?
Sure. So, it's pretty easy to show off Austin, Texas. I show them what I do, right? So I love the Lady Bird Lake Trail. That's hands down my favorite aspect. Besides the people of Austin, the environment of Austin of Lady Bird Lake Trail and being able to walk or run the trail is my penultimate. I'm just like, it's as good as it gets for me. So I'd recommend they walk the trail. I'd recommend that they'd go have a drink or a bite to eat on the lawn of the Four Seasons. I go over there all the time and I walk off the trail onto the lawn of the Four Seasons. I feel like I'm on vacation, yet I just walk like 10 minutes from where I live.
Right.
Right. So that's a good start. You got to go see some live music, whether you're going to Continental Club, Sea Boys, Saxon Pub, going to Moody Theater, which is at the W, I believe is the best live music venue in the United States from an acoustic perspective. I think that going and taking a stroll on South Congress or 2nd Street is always a really nice time. There's so many great restaurants in both of those areas. People love Barton Springs. I wish I got there more often. I love the green belt, also known as the Violet Crown Trail. You can walk 15 minutes into our trail system from effectively downtown and feel like you're in the middle of nature. Lake Austin is always magical, right? It's so cool I can be at my residence in downtown and 10 minutes later, I can be on a boat in Lake Austin.
Yeah.
That's special.
It is. Right? Absolutely. There's too much to do in 24 hours, it sounds like. A new question for you. Artificial intelligence and where do you see that affecting real estate? And are you concerned about it or do you find it to be helpful?
I look at AI like any other great tool. I feel like that somebody that's a professional, somebody that's an expert at what they do, they have to constantly grow and evolve in what they do. Right. If they want to be best in class, they have to embrace technological changes. But do I believe that AI is going to do my job? Absolutely not. Right. At least in the caliber of real estate that I do transactions in, when you're doing, I believe my average transaction is probably closer to $4 million these days. The buyer profile or the seller profile, they want a personal touch. They want knowledge and information that you cannot get through artificial intelligence. You got to be able to touch and feel and smell the real estate at that price point. Sure. Right. And you have to be able to have a human interaction, a human connection with the person on the other side of the table. Right. Sure. I do give pause for those that are entry level in the business that haven't made a mark, that are struggling for any type of transaction. Those folks might get eaten alive by AI to some degree. But sure, at the top of the market, as long as you're embracing technology and growing and advancing with that, just at the same pace, I think it's what's going to continue to separate us from the rest.
So if you were to give some advice to a younger Kevin Burns or to a rookie at Urbanspace trying to find their footing, what would you say is that characteristic or that thing that you hang your hat on, that you say, if you do this really, really well, you at least have a fighting chance? What would be the top couple characteristics that you would recommend?
That's an absolutely fantastic question. It's something that I regularly coach my team on. It's all about expertise, right? So I tell my team when they come on board at Urbanspace, pick a few areas that you want to become great at. I usually tell them, first and foremost, the area that you personally live in, become an expert at that, right? And then find the area that you want to live in, that you aspire to live in, and be an expert there as well, right? And the hope is that you create enough success for yourself that you get to move from the place where you currently are to the place where you want to be, right? And if you're putting all of your energy and effort into those two spots, then over time, you truly are going to be an expert. The transactions are going to come easier to you. It's a faster process because you don't have to re-educate yourself in the process. The other thing that I like to talk about is, I kind of call it my bridge across the water, my bridge to success, right? You have knowledge, communication, and network, right? You got to have all three. So if you have knowledge of the real estate market, but you don't know how to communicate it, even if you have a network, you're not getting anywhere, right? If you have the knowledge and you know how to communicate, but you don't have a network, then you're not getting anywhere. You got to have knowledge, you got to be able to communicate, and you have to have a network. And having a network, in my opinion, is building trust amongst a group of peers that you can help out and they can help you out, right?
Sure.
So, if you know how to communicate and you have a network, but you don't have any knowledge, you're not getting anywhere as well.
Right.
So I believe those three things are integral in building up simultaneously.
Along those lines, with knowledge, it seems like real estate trends and watching Austin grow and becoming an expert in a specific area, it seems overwhelming. I think, especially to new agents. How do you, as a top of your game agent, stay ahead of the game and stay ahead of the latest trends?
Well, once again, it comes back to bite-sized pieces, right? So I've been in this business now for approaching, do I have to say it, 30 years, right? It's weird because I'm only like 29.
Right.
But I don't try and be, I said it earlier, I'm not going to be all things to all people. I don't try and learn all the different submarkets of Austin, right? Mm-hmm. I know downtown and close in East Austin and close in South Austin and close in West Austin and close in North Austin and Westlake. Right.
Sure.
And outside of that, I just could care less, if you want to know the truth.
Right.
And because of the fact that I focus on a relatively small geographical area, even today, it makes my job relatively easy. It allows me to stay current with the marketplace. And, people have asked me like, Kev, you got such a great brand in Urbanspace. Why don't you go to other markets? And I realized I just want to be the best I can be in Austin. It allows me to live a great life. It allows me to properly service my clientele. And it allows me to spend quality time with my family.
Tell me about the moment where you realized, real estate, I think I might have made it. I think I might understand this game, and I think I'm doing pretty good at it. Was there a time where the aha light went off for you?
Yes.
What did it look like?
It looked like when I sold out a 240 unit condo project before the first unit was ready to move in. And I was 20 something years old, and nobody else had done anything like that before in Central Texas, or maybe even Texas for that matter, in the history of real estate, as far as selling out a high rise before the first residence delivered.
Right.
That was an aha moment. That was a turning point for my organization and for myself.
Sure. I remember that. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Tell us about your involvement with the Elite 25. How long have you been involved with it? What do you think about it? What does it bring to the table for your business?
Tony, we were just talking about that. I've been involved in Elite 25 for well over a decade. I don't want to age myself and say closer to 20 years, but it's definitely been well over a decade. And my favorite part about it is the camaraderie. So I like to look at the levels of access to real estate information, right? Average Joe agent for that matter. They get to see what's on MLS, which then gets distributed to Zillow and Redfin and all the other things, right? That's like level 1 access to information. Level 2 access to information are the off-market listing sites like the Austin Luxury Network, right? And, there's probably 14 or 15,000 agents in Austin now, maybe more. And maybe there are 1,000 people that are involved with that, right? And so in order to get access to those off-market deals, you have to at least pay another fee as an agent. And then as a buyer, you have to be working with the buyer's agent that has access to those. Well, at Elite 25, we go at a whole different extreme as far as access to listings and be able to both help out buyers and sellers, because we're exchanging information about properties that will never be listed in MLS. They'll never be listed in an off-market luxury listing site. They're barely talked about. They barely released the address without an NDA. And we have access to that. And we share that knowledge and information amongst a very elite few human beings. And we're able to share that information because of how professional the individuals are in this organization.
Yeah.
And we have fun.
Yeah, that must be cool.
We all know each other well enough to be able to cut loose every now and then and have a few drinks and laugh and celebrate the successes and put our heads on each other's shoulders for the sorrows that we go through in a down market.
Heard. Well, good luck with the Modern. Thank you for coming in today, and we look forward to seeing what great things are coming from Urbanspace and Kevin Burns in the future.
Well, thank you very much, Tony. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Awesome.
If you want to hear more from Elite 25, be sure to subscribe to this show and find us on Instagram and TikTok. Tune in again next week for another interview with one of the top 1% real estate agents in the country.